Iran is a very controversial issue. There are Muslims divided on Iran. Many Muslims support Iran in this because they're saying Iran is the only power that's standing up to the Israelis. I believe Iran is definitely not in favor of the Muslims of the Middle East because Iranian policies in the last 20 odd years have been very, very negative. For example, if you look at the situation in Syria, there was a genocide in Syria of nearly 600,000 people.
So let's go to Syria. This is the example that the Wahhabis like to trot out as if they really care about Syrians. He's saying 600,000 deaths, and he's attributing this to Iran. 600,000 is the total death toll, according to international human rights groups. That includes military and civilians on both sides. So you have the Assad faction, Bashar al-Assad on one side, and then you have the rebel factions on the other side. The total amount of deaths attributed to both sides is 600,000. But Adnan Rashid, either because he's ignorant or because he's being deliberately deceptive, he's attributing all 600,000 of these to Iran. How is this fair? How is this just? Because first of all, why shouldn't you divide it up? Divide it up according to the official numbers. Bashar al-Assad's side is responsible for 400,000. These are the official numbers. Around 400,000 killed by Bashar al-Assad's faction, 200,000 killed by the rebel factions. And the rebel factions are a wide variety, diverse group of different factions rebelling against Bashar al-Assad. And each of those factions are backed by different international actors or agencies from the West and from the Gulf and the Middle East. So it's really 400,000 on the side of Bashar al-Assad, 200,000 on the side of the rebels. He's adding these up and he's saying this is all Iran's fault. This is not just, this is not fair. Why wouldn't you say that, well, here's 400,000 that Bashar al-Assad is responsible for, that secular Ba'athist. He's not even Shia. Bashar al-Assad is not even Shia. He's a secular Ba'athist, and his background is an Alawi background. Alawis are not 12er Shia. That's not the same religion even as Islam, as the 12er Shia. Alawis are considered to be non-Muslims according to the 12er Shia, according to Sunnis as well. So Bashar al-Assad is responsible for 400,000. And yes, Bashar al-Assad had backers. He had backers. And Iran wasn't even necessarily the biggest backer of Bashar al-Assad. What about Russia? Arguably, Russia was providing the biggest bombs and the biggest air support that was causing the most amount of death in Syria since 2011. Why isn't Russia mentioned by any of these Wahhabis, actually? Furthermore, countries like Saudi, countries like the UAE, countries like Qatar, they were also backing some of the rebel groups at the initial stages of the revolution. Do those countries get attributed with any of these deaths? Any of these 600,000 deaths? Are their hands bloodied by any of that? Or we have to ignore, we have to ignore Bashar al-Assad, the Alawis, we have to ignore the Russians, we have to ignore the Gulf states, we have to just pin everything on Iran and Hezbollah? This is not just. A more just perspective, a more just evaluation would say that these are 600,000 deaths. The main responsibility falls on the Ba'athist secular tyrant dictator Bashar al-Assad, who is responsible for this slaughter and his crackdown against the Arab Spring. The main responsibility falls on him. Then arguably the Russians, and then also Iran and Hezbollah. Yes, they are responsible. Yes, they are an accomplice to these crimes, and they should be held responsible for these crimes, the amount of blood that has been shed. And there are these other actors as well. There are these other countries that have been involved as well. That is a more just analysis, a more objective analysis, a more accurate analysis. But because Adnan Rashid is a propagandist, because he is dishonest, he just says 600,000, this is all because of Iran. This is all because of Iran. In reality, if we look at the Syrian revolution, it didn't begin as a sectarian conflict. By the way, it didn't begin as a sectarian conflict. It began as a pro-democratic Arab Spring protest. Just like there were protests in Tunisia, there were protests in Egypt and the rest of the Arab world, there were protests. People going out into the streets in Damascus, in Idlib, in Aleppo, in Syria, to protest Bashar al-Assad and his unjust tyrannical rule, him and his fathers. It was a peaceful protest. Then Bashar al-Assad cracked down in the most violent, brutal way, and this forced the protesters to become rebels, to take up arms. And then this served as an opportunity for other international factions to fight a proxy war within Syria. This is why Russia got involved. This is why Saudi got involved. This is why Iran got involved. The United States got involved. Israel got involved to fight a proxy war with the blood of the Syrian people. Then it became sectarian. Then it became the huge disaster that it became by the time it ended, by the time Bashar al-Assad was deposed last year in November. So why can't we see the whole picture of this Syrian conflict? Why can't Adnan, who claims to be a historian, why can't he give us the full picture of this? Because that distracts from his propaganda. It undermines his propaganda against Iran, and it favors Israel, because the Israelis, the Arabic spokesperson for the IDF, is putting out these talking points that, oh, Sunnis, never forget Syria. Never forget the Syrian Sunnis that Iran slaughtered unilaterally by itself. Never forget. This is what the IDF and the Zionists are putting out. These are the talking points that the Wahhabis are also spreading. Adnan is also spreading. By the way, if it's sectarian, then why is the majority of Bashar al-Assad's army Sunnis? They're ethnically Sunni. They're from a Sunni background. Sunni Syrians are filling the ranks of the Assad army. So why aren't Sunnis actually responsible in part as well for the 600,000 death toll? This is a fact that's often left out. The majority of Bashar al-Assad's army, they were not Shia and they were not Alawi. The top generals were Alawi, but the Alawi are not 12 or Shia. So you have a Bashar al-Assad secular Ba'athist regime, tyrannical, oppressive regime that mostly consists of Alawis in the top positions in the military and the government. And then the ranks are filled with Syrian Sunnis. And they're going and slaughtering, with the help of Russia and the help of Iran and Hezbollah, they're going and slaughtering other Syrian Sunnis fighting this kind of war.